business college too, was an associate dean, and she um, came and saw one for regionals, and then immediately was like, "I'm in. Anytime you want me to come back, I'm happy to do that." So, all right, so we are going to go ahead and get started. So, welcome to the Getting Buy-in session 5B. And my name is Alan Tomhave. I'm the coach at, I'm one of the coaches at Youngstown State University. I've had a team for about 10 years now, not about, I've had a team for 10 years now, getting ready to start year 11. I'm fortunate that I've never had to make any students pay for anything up till now. I shouldn't say, will never happen, but up until now, unless they're wanting to do something weird or whatever. Like on my way to the regional bowl now, I drive right past Grandpa's Cheese Barn, which if you've ever driven past it in Ohio, is kind of a fun little stop. So I stop there for them. They make me stop now. And I only took once, and now I have to do it every time. And they're on their own. They know Grandpa's Cheese Barn is your own pocket. I'm not purchasing stuff there, but so in the 10 years, we've been really fortunate. So I'm gonna talk about really, I'm gonna go through three things real fast. So first, I'm gonna talk about what I think are the different resources that people need to get. And then two, sort of the different stakeholders that you need to get these resources from. And then the third is sort of some of the things that I have done to make sure that I keep those resources coming. I don't anticipate that's going to take me more than a couple of minutes. And so then what I'd like to do is open it up and say, have I missed any resources? Are there any other stakeholders on campus that you can go to that could help get those resources? And then third, is there a particular resource you need more of, or you've had trouble? And then we can sort of just troubleshoot and help everybody get the resources they need to be able to participate in this with as much resources as possible, or many resources as possible. And so often that is once you've got buy-in, it makes it a lot easier to do that. So here's my list of resources. The first two are the big ones, right? You need time and money, but then on top of all of that, you also need space, and that's both physical space. That's usually easy to get. If you can just get a classroom somewhere to participate, or a conference room somewhere, that's not hard. But second, you need the mental space to do a lot of the planning. I actually take my co-coach is there with me, but I take care of all the logistical planning that requires some effort and some thought, and remembering to go and register for the competition. And you want to make sure you have hotel rooms if you're having to stay overnight. So that's becomes a mental space. It's also, experience is a resource that you want. Getting that experience often requires the other resources as well, and that could be resources or experience as a judge. It could be experience as a coach, and various other sorts of ways that might come up. Another area you need is commitment, and this is it sort of came up in the coaching sessions earlier, that you need some commitment from the students, right? So you don't want to go into it just assuming that everything's going to be fine. If you have a class and you can maybe attach a grade to the work that's being done, maybe that makes it a little bit easier. But it doesn't necessarily make it easier to get them to take it seriously and do the real prep that needs, depending on what that grade looks like. But if you want them to, like thinking about the comment earlier, that you want them to feel good about their performance, then they have to commit to actually taking it seriously and putting the work into it. And then marketing is another resource, oddly, that I think we often don't think about. But if you have some marketing, it actually helps to do all the rest as well. So then what are some of the stakeholders that you might have to engage with, or that you want to get these resources from? Obviously, students. If you want to have an ethical team, you have to have a couple of students at least that are going to participate in it and be on the team. The coaches, which is a lot of time potentially. So for a lot of people, the amount of time it takes to do the coaching is prohibitive, and you don't want to actually do that. Faculty, that could be faculty coaches. It could also be faculty coming in as guest judges, which is how I use most of the faculty. I get faculty across campus all the time, every season, to come in and be guest judges for me. You need community buy-in, so that can be both in terms of the time they give you, could be in terms of money, or their experience, and so that they can come in a lot of different ways. I know some teams have had community sponsors. I've never been able to do that, or I've never done it, I should say, not been able to. I've never done it, but I know some teams have. And in fact, the community sponsor that one team had, the team made it into nationals, and the community sponsor actually came with them to nationals to see the team perform, which I think is a great thing to have happened. There's teaching and learning centers that often we have on campuses, and teaching and learning centers often have money that they have set aside for things that are related to teaching and learning. Obviously, is a surprise. And there, if you can talk about the benefits of Ethics Bowl, then that can link them to. I'll mention that in just a minute in my other list here. So that's a great resource. Also, ethics centers. Obviously, if you have an ethics center on your campus, then that if they have funding available to spend on this type of programming, then that's really one of your best sources, probably, because they should recognize the benefits. But then, and this next group is really key, you need to get buy-in from administrators, right? So administrators coming at different levels, right? You've got the department level, you got college levels, university levels. Sometimes this even involves the board of trustees. If you can get the board of trustees excited about Ethics Bowl, then they'll drive the train, because everybody all the way up wants the board of trustees to be happy. So if they like it, then everybody else is going to recognize that, and they're going to support it and do what they can to sort of keep it going, right? And then two other areas that I kind of just tacked on here, one related to the resource of marketing. If you can get your marketing department on board, they can push the word and get the word out and help you communicate with other stakeholders. But then also travel services. If you can get time from them, if you have a department on campus that helps arrange travel, then that's a big resource, or a big stakeholder that you can take advantage of. So I used to do all the travel arrangements myself. That was a bit of a nightmare. It took a lot of mental energy. I remember thinking back to that mental space. So every time I tried to do that, or every time I had to do that, it took a lot of focus away from other things that I wanted to be working on, right? So having travel services in my university take care of plane tickets now, and actually take care of hotel arrangements. They charge me a little bit of a fee. I think they charge me $9 per student now. I don't care. It's well worth it to take that off of my mental load, right? So those are sort of the resources and the stakeholders. In just a minute, I'm going to ask if I missed anything. Is there other people that we need to be engaging with here? But then what do you do to make sure that you're getting buy-in from these different areas, right? So first, keep in mind that your students are your best recruiters. This came up before. I think Greg mentioned that in his in the first coaching session. Your students, if your students can go out there and talk to other students about what's going on, they're going to bring people back who are kind of like-minded already and are more inclined to be moving in this direction of engaging in this type of activity. And a big part of really what you should do, and this is kind of should permeate the entire activity, is you want to make sure the students are having fun, right? So not just the students, but anybody you bring in as a guest judge, like just tell them to have a good time. I actually tell judges when I have them come in to be a guest judge, like, your job is just to catch the students up, trip them up in some way. And you can make up a character if you are just this really nice person, but you want to come in and just be, a total jerk to the team just for fun. You can do that. I make sure my students know that that could happen. So and I actually once had a few years ago, there was a case about a kakapo, which is this flightless parrot from, I think, is it New Zealand, and the students were kind of slamming the kakapo, which I was kind of on board with. I thought it was funny, but one of the judges that I had pretended that he actually had a good friend who owned, had a kakapo as a pet, and so kind of made it so that it was a little awkward for the students, but it was fun for him. So he had a good time. The students then realized they were having a good time. So it's really having fun. Really just makes the rest of it makes it a lot easier for you. But then second, kind of related to this, and also going to Rachel's point earlier in the day, she says she started emphasizing this special mentorship role that you have when you're participating in an ethics bowl, that they have a mentor that they get. So I have a little thing that I do on the first organizing meeting. I'll just tell them, like, look, you're going to end up with my cell phone. We're going to do, group chat whenever we're doing the competition. So we're going around whenever we're traveling. There's a group chat going with everybody on it. So it's huge. And when we're doing practices, I actually make sure they know, like, I'm not going to, like, if I'm in class, I spend a little more time being careful about how I talk to my students. I'm paying a little more attention to, I want them to know that they can speak up, and I'm not going to slam them. When I come into Ethics Bowl, I actually tell them, like, this is not a class, because I do it as a side activity, as an extracurricular. I'm just going to come and give it to you straight. Like, I don't have enough time. I'm just going to, if I think that was a stupid point, I'm just going to say, yeah, that didn't work for me at all. My co-coach and I will actually joke around a little bit. The students actually think it's fun, but there's this old West Wing thing where, something good was happening, they would do this, thing taking off. And then if something bad was happening, they would kind of have something crashing. So if we think they're doing a terrible job, we'll just do it right in front of them, kind of pretend like they're, going down in flames. And it kind of helps them. It lightens the experience for them, but it also kind of helps illustrate, like, the special relationship we have. Like, I trust you to know that I don't think less of you because I think the point you just made didn't work. And it also helps them to recognize when it's not going well when they're doing it. But it's really all about having a good time. I even, in this last year, there was something about owls. A case about owls. I can't remember exactly what the case was. And the team said something, and I just wrote a note on them about how they just wanted to, kill all owls, or they didn't care about owls or whatever. Right? It was a great one. It was a really good case. So, and so, but the team's position made it so I just made this joke, and I stuck it up there while they were talking to make it clear, like, that they didn't care about the owls and they wanted them all to die. And so they thought it was funny, and they just kind of helps them all have a good time. But if they're having a good time, they're making friends, they're having that relationship, that's what you want, right? So, all right. So then I'll say, especially when you're starting out, once you've got a team going, I think it's easier to get the buy-in, because if you've had faculty participating. But I think one of the ways to get buy-in or to get things started is actually to kind of exhibit the virtues of the Ethics Bowl, right? So if you are known on campus for being someone who's good to be have on the different committees, and who's a community player basically, and is going to help out and do what you can, and is thoughtful, then it's going to make it a lot easier for you to go and get guest judges from your faculty and bring them in to participate, right? If they like you, just like if the students like you, they're going to participate more. If the other faculty on campus like you, they're going to come and participate more. So make sure you're nice, I guess, but it's sort of the virtues that you might talk about that you get from the Ethics Bowl, and I think that helps, right? The next is sort of an obvious point, but winning actually helps. But keep in mind that winning doesn't necessarily mean actually winning the regional or national competition, right? If you're winning, if you are, right, then it's really helpful because, everybody above you, all the administrators want to brag about it, right? So that is helpful, right? It does. But it's not just about winning the actual competition. It's also thinking about the different comments that judges make at the competitions, right? So any positive comment that someone makes, I put it in an email and I throw it out there so that everybody knows, here's the types of things that people are saying about our students. And that's what you want. So it's a win if you, go up from absolutely last place at your regional to, right in the middle of the pack, right? That's a win. So you want to brag about those sorts of things and make sure everybody knows, oh, we did really well. Thanks a lot for your help. Talking, and in particular, when you're starting a program, talking about Ethics Bowl virtues and the educational value is really key. My first year, the way I got the funds, I had some Ethics Center funds, but the way I actually started it was by going to our Institute for Teaching and Learning and saying, hey, here's this great program that really pushes critical thinking and ethical reasoning and communication skills. And so I'd really like to have some money to do it. Back when this workshop used to be in person, they funded me to drive over to Indianapolis, or into Indiana. It's not actually Indianapolis. It's just a little north of there, right? To the Ethics Center that hosts it. And so that was great. But that was the Institute for Teaching and Learning at our campus. And so they have a mini grant program. I suspect that kind of thing is common. So as long as there's an educational benefit, then they're interested in doing that, especially if it's something that can continue, right? If it's not a one and done sort of thing. So I was saying, I'm going to start this program. I want to keep it going. And then the other thing I tell people on the educational value, in addition to all the virtues, I actually tell them that a competition is really like your entire university education, your entire college education kind of condensed into one small little package, right? Because you have to do your critical thinking, you have to do the research skills, you have to do teamwork, you have to do communication, right? So all those pieces that are involved are things that people want to say, oh yeah, our students do those things, right? So I'll say too, on the winning, if you outperform another school that your school is competitive with, regardless of how stupid that competition is, then I would always mention that, right? So, there's several Ivy League schools now that participate in Ethics Bowl. You better believe every one of those schools that participated in a particular year is on my list of people that we beat. My current university president is a former Air Force lieutenant colonel, right? He's a military guy. So if we beat, a military academy, it's on there. I'm making sure they all know, especially if they, have a lot of respect for that particular institution and I beat them. I want everybody to know I just beat the school that you're proud of or think great. And then that puts in their mind, oh, well, we should support this. Like, we should do more to keep this going, right? A lot of communication and praise. Thank everybody all the time. Send out those emails. If you had a faculty volunteer from another college of yours, you're going to make sure you include their dean on here's how we did this year, and thanks to everybody who participated, so that they know they're getting credit for participating in something. And especially if everybo's on board with the Ethics Bowl. And then finally, my wife actually was a judge for me once, and she said, as I was going through this list real fast, she said, what really helped is if when she was going to be a guest judge, she knew that there was going to be another judge there. And I have had this as an issue. So people who have never done it before, sometimes a little uncertain, I tell them, I know about ethics. You don't have to know about ethics. You just have to come and listen to the argument that students make and ask them questions, right? And so, but if they have another judge there, then that actually really helps. So that's how, the stuff that I've kind of done to kind of help maintain the buy-in that I got early on. I am lucky that we have an ethics center in my my department, and so I'm able to pull some funds for there. That's actually how I pay for my regional competition. If you go to nationals, unless it's down the street, so sometimes it's in Cincinnati, that's a drive for me. That's a 5-hour drive. I rent a van, I could take everybody down. That's no big deal. But if it's, if I have to fly to Florida or down to Texas, or, I haven't taken a team out to California yet for nationals, but I've taken them to Portland, right? That's an expensive trip. And so there I actually have college fees that all students pay, that if you're a major in my college, we get a little fee. And so the dean's budget, or the dean has discretion over those funds. And if you get to nationals, often that's sufficient for the dean to say, oh, I have some money for you. You can use this money if you don't already have another pot. So, all right, I'm gonna shut up, but here's the questions, right? That I have. One, how did I miss any resources that we need to be paying attention to? Second, did I miss any stakeholders that we might want to engage with, right? And then third, are there any other ways to kind of ensure that you have buy-in from those stakeholders to get those resources? But then I think the most important thing that this discussion can do is, if one of you is having trouble getting some particular resources, let's talk about that, and let's see if we can all collectively find a way for you to get those resources, sort of help you troubleshoot a little bit. So I'll shut up now. Matthew.
All right. First off, I was going to say I'm glad someone enjoyed the owl case, because
it was great. I loved it.
I had a great time writing it. Once I thought of the title, I just had to write it. Anyway, just piggybacking on a lot of what you said, and about getting buy-in from various groups on campus, one of the things I found effective is to make sure that you phrase it, your pitch, in a way that ties in with what's important to them. So I'm in a college of business, which is very different than and I have been in a philosophy department too, but tied into the programmatic learning outcomes of our college are things like critical thinking and communication. Well, you know what? Tied into our accreditation. So in a college of business, AACSB accreditation, with its emphasis on somewhat on ethics, but also on community impact. So you phrase it in those terms to make sure they know that. My particular, both college and university have a big emphasis on experiential learning. Sell it as experiential learning. Jump through the hoops to get, if you got a class, to get that that sort of thing. And it winds up being in, I think our accreditation report every time, either because we kind of take turns. I host every other year down here in Texas, and then I coach on the opposing year. So. Also, the thing that got my dean excited about it, although he's only my dean until Thursday now, what won him over finally is the time the University of Chicago came to the event. Because what do you mean you got the University of Chicago to come to our campus? And all of a sudden, Matthew's dumb little project got his attention. And then once he actually showed up to one and he saw the morning breakfast where the largest meeting room on campus was standing room only, and he's like, you got all these people here excited about ethics on a Saturday morning, and boy, his tone really changed. And so doing things like that, or I think your teaching center stuff, if it's part of your quality enhancement plan, if you can tie it into those things where funding come from. And one last thing, telling the story of the success regardless of how your team actually did.
Right.
And I'll tell a story. So 2 years ago, I was coaching, and my team came in dead last. But when I reported this to the department chair and the dean, I didn't hide it. But what I did was I listed all the really great things that they had done.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we're a campus of mainly first generation students, and I talked about how almost all the participants had their family, like their kids came and watched them do this, and how they'd gotten better over the day, and how, like, in the last round, they actually did go up against the University of Chicago, and it was a very close round. Like if one judge hadn't hated utilitarianism, it might have gone the other way. But I told that story. And then last year, a new guy's coaching, and he comes up to me and he says, "I'm really nervous. I just talked to the chair. You did so great last year. Like, how am I supposed to compete?" And I was like, Robert, I'm a lawyer. We came in last. I just spun it really well.
Yeah.
Um, and so, sometimes, tied in, but tie it into the values of the university. It was a valuable learning experience for first generation students, and all that sort of thing. And then they did better last year. And last year we got to report that they did, back to rivals, that they did better than the UT branch in town. And so that went a long way.
Yeah, I think that kind of stuff definitely helps in thinking about just the phrasing. And it really is, it's specific schools too, right? I mean, that really, like the University of Chicago example, we, we're in Ohio, and so we're this small little regional campus, small regional university. OSU is the big dog in Ohio, right? And there's no hiding that. OSU sent a team to our regional this last year, and we went directly, against one of their teams, and we won. So when I then got called in front of the board of trustees to talk about this, that I'm bragging about that huge, because wait, you beat them, and then so it's really key. And then you're right, actually, the way you phrase it, you think about it's sales in one sense, but it's making sure everybody knows like there's positive things that come out of it other than winning, right? It's not just about winning. So, Greg.
Yeah, just you actually just hit on one of the things I was going to mention, but in terms of competition, um, you mentioned beating Ohio State, and Matthew mentioned beating the UT. We competed against Yale and lost, and Stanford and lost. But boy, did it make a big difference in a two-year college to say, hey, we competed against Yale and we competed against Stanford. That made a really big difference to say, hey, we're competing against these teams, and we've got a really small program. That looks impressive, even if you lose, just the fact that you're competing against it. And then you mentioned the board of trustees. They can be a really valuable resource. If they know what your program is and what they're doing or what you're doing. We met before the board of trustees several years ago, and we did kind of a mock ethics bowl for them, and so that they could see kind of what it was. And so we have their support. And the last thing I'll say is, and we haven't done it yet, but we're talking about it, is doing a campus-wide ethics bowl competition where it would be professors doing the ethics bowl, and then drawing. So it wouldn't just be the philosophy faculty, but if we got a competition or we got a case about global warming or something like that, pulling in somebody from the sciences, pulling in an economics professor, so that other departments across campus can see what it is we're doing and then actually participating in that. I think that that's one thing that we're talking about doing. I think it probably could help to get buy-in from other departments and divisions on our campus.
Yeah, I love that idea of doing a professor ethics bowl to kind of help them. I'm thinking you could have, I don't know if you'd want to do this, but you could have students then turn around and be the judges rather than, so you're flipping the whole thing. So that's excellent. And I was gonna, so board of trustees, I think you're right, it can be hugely important. I'll just share two things. So most recently, we actually so the provost called me up directly and said, because I have a connection to the ethics bowl team, and I don't do the moot court team, but I have a connection to them. So if I say to students, you need to show up at this place, then often they'll do for me, if I tell them show up, they will, right? And so the provost called me up and said, hey, I forgot that we need to do presentations to the board of trustees in like 2 days. Can you get some students to come? Anytime anybody ever asks you to do something at that level, you should always just say yes. Like that should be an automatic, yeah, I can work that out, even if not all the students can come. And so we went, and I had the students stand up there and talk, and I gave a little thing, a little expression of it. I had my co-coach actually held his phone up with a 2-minute countdown at when I started, so that they all kind of, when it built pressure, and then kind of, it's a sales pitch, and now they're like, what the hell is this 2 minutes? Why are we, what's the countdown? What's going to happen? You get there, and then pointed out, like, here's what the students have to do in the 2-minute timer that you just saw. So could you have done this presentation, a 10-minute presentation that you planned in 2 minutes? And then, so it's actually becomes really impressive. And the board, the chair of our board, called up my co-coach, who was also the faculty union president, and so had gone head to head with the chairman of the board several occasions recently. And so they had each other's phone number. He called up and was like, man, that team is so impressive. I want, whenever the athletics teams travel, they all have uniforms. I want you guys to have that too. I'm going to pay out of pocket. So he actually, paid out of pocket for us to get, some jackets and some other things. And so was really supportive of the team after we'd gone and talked about it. He even then had his wife come and be a guest judge. I don't know why he didn't do it. He volunteered his wife, but she showed up and had a great time and was like, when can I judge the nationals? So now she's going to come and judge nationals. But as long as, and I think she came to the final practice before the actual competition is what she came to. So we're pretty polished by that point, right? And so that was for nationals preparation. And so it was really helpful for her to see that. But then I'll also say, like, we won the national competition in 2020 and went to the board of trustees then, and they just love any kind of bragging that they can do. And so they actually, it was again the chair of the board at the time said, I think we have a rule that if you win a national title, you get a championship ring. So then the university bought the team and the coaches these championship rings, and it was, it's a fun recognition, right? If you do well, then you've got that. Now I can use that to recruit other teams, right? So students, and say, well, I've got that championship ring on the shelf over there that the board paid for. And so, if anytime you can get in front of the board of trustees really can be a big help. And if they like it, everybody on down the line is going to support it. So just gives them bragging rights, right? So other thoughts or questions or resources you need to get and you don't know how to get them?
Alan, I joke that if we were throwing a ball around during Ethics Bowl, that we'd be more likely to get funding.
Yeah. I actually had, so I have the ring, it sits on my shelf. And the only time I ever put it on is, so every now and then the president will, he has this fancy house for entertaining, and I'll get an invite to that. And the current president doesn't know what it means, but only time I've ever put it on was when I was going over to the president's house, and it happened to be the president who was, it was actually Jim Tressel, who was, if you're familiar with OSU football, he's their former football coach. And he happened to look over at me. He was talking up all these different things about, all the bragging points. And he looked over and happened to see me wearing the ring. That's the only time I've ever put it on. And the moment he sees it, he stops and then says, and we have this Ethics Bowl stuff going on. Alan, tell us about this. And so you always have to be ready to kind of give your little spiel and talk about it. But it's just sort of always taking every opportunity to show up in a place where you're going to have a chance to positively talk about it. And so those sorts of things definitely help. So, but I think you're right. If we were throwing a ball around, like, we're not great, and we're recording, I should be careful what exactly I say, right? But we're not known for these great sports results at YSU. Sometimes we do well, but we're really successful. We've had a really successful 10 years in Ethics Bowl, and yet, right, I don't have any scholarships for my students, right? But at least not for Ethics Bowl, which is what I'd like to go to, see if I can get that worked out. Does anybody actually have scholarships for this kind of stuff, or do you give it out for this? Anybody heard of that?
Utah State has scholarships. Weber State has scholarships. You have to have been on the team for at least a year. So if somebody to your college transfers and wants to be on their team, they wouldn't be eligible. But they do have scholarships. I think they're like $500.
Interesting. Okay. To see if I can work that out somehow. So, any other questions or resources or thoughts or anything else that you think has a way to get buy-in or to get people on board with supporting this activity?
Oh, Alan, if anybody has done who doesn't have much of a budget, who've done like GoFundMe.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I will say I suspect local businesses would be happy to help fund some of the stuff, not especially if you can get multiples coming in. Yeah.
I was going to say one of the things that was recommended to us was even going out and contacting some lawyers and some of the businesses about possibly sponsoring us. And, you know, we could get t-shirts with like their names on the back or something so they could get some free advertising. One of my friends mentioned, I need to do this, but that I could go to our city council and tell them about the stuff that we have done, and they could actually make a declaration and declare a certain day, the day of Ethics Bowl, and, you know, commemorating, you know, any of the successes and things we've done. And so it's like a proclamation that would be in the newspaper, getting us some publicity. And then we'd be able to take that around and say, hey, which of you businesses would like to help? You know, because we've got a lot of first generation students here, a lot of very low income. I'm right on the border with Texas and Mexico. And so,
yeah. So I'll say your school. So you have Cynthia, what's her last name? I want to say Brown, but I don't know if that's actually it. But I think you're the school that I think that when I mentioned someone who had a sponsor before and their sponsor came to their nationals, I thought it was your school, but maybe it was back when it was called something else. No, okay. Maybe I'm thinking.
No, this is last year is the first year we've ever had Ethics Bowl. But
okay.
Karen Mizell at Utah Valley is a friend of mine, and she's been encouraging us with some things to do.
So what school are you at?
I'm at South Texas College. You might be thinking of Utah, of UTRGV.
That's what
University
I'm
of
thinking
Texas, the Rio Grande Valley.
Yep, that's what I'm thinking of. So yeah, they're the ones that had a sponsor. They did, and and it worked out well for them. And the sponsor came to nationals, and they came, and they all had the same shirts, and it's nice. I'll say, we had a judge who was a psychologist once who, like, our team. I don't know why they get a kick out of this, but our team loves talking about what they're going to wear. Like, that's a big topic of conversation for them, and which is fine. But they all get together and say, "Oh, here's what we're going to do." And everybody has something like this, right? And they had a psychologist as a judge at regionals once who said, "This is a really good look. It's good that you're doing this because it kind of gives you this psychological edge. You're a cohesive unit, right, as a team. So you're all working together. And if we should be trying to do things that give us a psychological edge, it seems to violate the spirit of the Ethics Bowl a little bit, but it's helpful." In those cases. And so if you have a sponsor that gets everybody the same shirt, right, you're getting that sort of uniform look. I know people have complained about the military academies, coming in uniform, that it kind of gives them that psychological edge. I don't know if that matters or not, but having competed against some military academies before, I probably depends on what kind of mood I'm in when if I think that's true or not. But I think having a sponsor helps with that kind of thing if you can work that out. So, but that's a great idea, going to the city and having them do it, declare an Ethics Bowl day or whatever, or an ethics day. So that's fantastic. And I have connections. I've not even thought about it. I've got connections to the city, so I can go down there, and now hopefully I can get them to do something like that. So nice. Other ideas? Other difficulties? I mean, I'll just say, like, if you can get your dean, wherever the money is, right, depending on the organization of your institution, right, if you get that person on board, then you're set, right? I used to have, pre-COVID, I'd have my dean come as a guest judge. She was really into supporting any kind of student activity, so we had a great one to come and do that. After COVID, I've had my current dean. I'm actually the associate dean, so there's already some administrative buy-in. I wasn't when I first started the team, but there's some administrative buy-in. I have a little bit of control over the budget, and I've had my dean come and participate as a guest judge, but he doesn't come every time. I invite him every time. I also am sure to always invite the president and the people who I think are decision makers on campus. I send out at the beginning of every season, hey, this is my annual, request for Ethics Bowl. And then if I go to nationals, here's round 2, request for Ethics Bowl help. And sometimes people will kind of definitely go out of their way to make sure they come and are a guest judge. Sometimes they don't, but they'll say, I can't do it this year because I'm teaching, at that time of night or whatever. And so, sometimes depending on when you schedule your practices, it can be hard to get people to come and be guest judges. But once they see it, it's the same thing, same comments that have been made earlier in the day. Once they see it, they're in. Like, so the provost said she's in, and the new dean of the business college said she's in. And then I loved, Matthew's point too. You phrase it in ways that benefits them. So, I went to the dean, the new dean of business, and said, there's this business ethics case writing competition. I'm building on my Ethics Bowl experience, so now I can build and do this new activity that I'd like to participate in, but I can't pay for the whole thing. It's usually in an expensive city, so can you kick in? And are you interested in doing that? And so the moment you start saying, are you interested in doing that, and they've already seen what you've done somewhere else, then they're more interested to do the new thing and to support the original activity as well. So it's really just, the more they can see what's going on, I think the better we all are, right? At least on a campus. So, all right.
Yeah, I have one more question, maybe. Talking to your advancement office, because they might be able to identify specific donors who would be interested in donating to the Ethics Bowl, a yearly donation of a certain number, a certain amount. And the advancement office has more information on who might be likely, So yeah. I know that they're really good resource as well.
Yeah, and I'll say we've had trouble getting connected to our advancement office, but that's a great resource. They're always looking for something to use to raise money for. So anything you can give them to brag about and to say, here's something we need money for. Can we, that's one of the big things they're looking for. Is, so what can we ask for, right? For what activity or what thing do we want to support? And so if you can get them to start getting annual donations, or just starting to set up an endowment of some kind that can help support that. Often the ethics centers are that way. So depending on what's happening in your state, or, we're a public institution. So we have a lot of limits sometimes on what we can, how we can do it, but we have an advancement office that can go and do things that I can't do, and get money to spend in ways that I can't normally spend. So great resource there. And so get them to come and watch also, get them to come and see it. And then they know how awesome it is, and they can go and actually do it. And if you do well, get on your local news too. We're a small town. I'm in Youngstown, Ohio. There's 60,000 people that live in Youngstown. There's, a few more that live around. So maybe I've got 150,000 total in the area. The news is happy to come and cover me if I've got something fun to talk about, or if I've got something that's a positive story. So the more you can be in the news, the better. And if you talk about it as a great benefit and a great educational experience to help you get to these sorts of skills that you're developing that's good for law school, or that's good for whatever, then students will be like, oh, maybe I do want to do that. I have a guy right now. He's a going to be a senior. I actually knew him in high school, and my daughter did debate, and so I'd see all kinds of kids doing debate because you have to go judge all the time if you're a debate parent, and I knew his mom, and his mom was like, no, he said already his plan is to go to YSU and do ethics bowl for 4 years, and then he's going to go to law school. So that was part of his, like, he worked it in as part of his plan, that he wanted to come and actually participate in this particular activity. So if it's clear that it's fun and you're, helping these students out, and they recognize the mentorship sort of piece, and it's a special relationship they have with their coach, I think it really helps students stick with it, and that's what you want. And then they have a good time, make friends, and there you go. So we got 3 minutes left, so we can either take back those 3 minutes, or if somebody wants a final question or issue they want to discuss, then we can discuss that. All right, seeing no hands going up, and I think we can go ahead and stop early. I appreciate you all, the extra thoughts and suggestions that you all had, and good luck in getting buy-in on your campuses. And if I can ever do anything to help, if you want me to, oh, actually, there was one more thing I was going to mention too. If you do well, and Appy sends out sometimes some invitations, like especially if you're going to nationals, then John Garcia used to say, who do you want me to send this email to? And so you'd tell him all the people you want that email to go to. So if you want it to go to the president, if you want it to go to the board of trustees, if you want it to go to, tell him, and he'll put the names on all of those on that email, and get it out there for everybody. And so he'll send that invitation to everybody. And actually, one time I told him, yeah, we're worried about the philosophy program even continuing. We're having problems. And he went back and looked at the history of my whole team, and then wrote this great email that was just this glowing email about how, like, oh, you got this great history of success. And it was really beneficial. So, the organizers are happy to help you out too. If you tell them, I need someone to say this, and to help me get buy-in from my institution, to get the resources to continue doing it, they'll do that. So they want it to succeed. They want you to be a successful team also. So, all right, I'll shut up now and be done. And actually, we're down to 4:19, so we can be done. We went almost the whole time. So, all right, thanks a lot, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the next session.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you.